Hello, welcome or welcome back to the channel. So there has been a lot of discussion about Endgame recently, especially since the new MOC, because it is kind of insane, I'm not gonna lie. And I'll be honest, usually I don't really care that much about Endgame because I think these games are more fun when you don't really care about meta. And I mean, one of my most used characters is Clara. But at the same time, I do still think it is important because most of what you can do in StarRail is combat. So if the combat sucks, you kind of have a problem. Now, I did make a video already talking about the problems with StarRail's Endgame. However, it's one thing to talk about the problems, it's another to actually suggest fixes for it, so that's what I am here to do in this video. So the goal here is to allow most characters to feasibly be able to 3-star clear without having to just completely min-max if you don't interact with the buffs, which I'll talk about that in a sec. And not zero cycling, because I'll be honest, zero cycling does not matter. And it is a really stupid standard that the community has for some reason, and I don't know why it exists. So with that said, how would I fix Endgame? Well, let's start with probably the most obvious thing, which is the health. I think this is pretty self-explanatory, because it has gotten to just absurd levels. I don't remember where I heard this exactly, but apparently floor 10 of this MOC has more health than floor 12 did 4 patches ago. Which, I mean, it should be obvious why that's a problem, because adding more health, 1, is just an artificial way to make it harder, but 2, isn't even making it harder, it's just making it more tedious, because you're just taking longer to kill the enemies. That's not harder, that's just more annoying. And then, the second probably most obvious thing is the buffs, which I am in kind of two minds about, because on the one hand, almost every gacha game has buffs that benefit the current on-banner character. However, it feels like in StarRail, the buffs matter so much more than in the other games, where if your characters don't interact with the buffs, you basically have to min-max, and with relics being super RNG reliant, that's kind of hard to do, but that's a discussion for another video. So how would I fix it? Well, there are two options that I see here. One, I would say, is to just make the buffs not feel as necessary by just lowering the power ceiling necessary, or 2, which I think is the better option, add more options for buffs so that more characters can utilize them. Since, I mean, in both Purification and Apocalyptic Shadow, you can pick from 3 different buffs, so maybe MOC could work like that. But I would even say to increase the selection of buffs from 3 to 6, so that just more characters can use them. Also, one suggestion that I did see from a video, I don't remember which, was to have multiple selections of enemies. One side can have 3 different options of enemies to fight, and then side 2 can have another 3 options of enemies. And I think that would help for all the modes, not just MOC. 1, just for variety's sake, so it doesn't feel like you're just doing the same thing over and over. And 2, it'll make more characters viable, since some characters are better against certain bosses, because some bosses are just one enemy, and some bosses are have a bunch of ads, so some characters will just do better against certain bosses. Now, all of this is assuming that the HP is lowered, since if it isn't, basically none of this matters. That's just step 1 to this, and then we get to the rest of the stuff, Now, one thing that I haven't seen many people talk about is enemy design. I mean, specifically action creep, because it is getting kind of insane. I thought Hule attacked a lot, and Nikador attacks so much, which I guess it does kind of make sense with how much more accessible action advance forward is now. But sometimes it does feel like either you just absolutely destroy the boss and they can't do anything, or you just get one tap before you can do anything, especially if you don't have someone like Aventurine and you're just using a healer. Now, to be honest, I don't really know how you would fix that besides just making the enemies not attack more, but at the same time I doubt Hoyo would actually change the bosses that are actually already in the game, so yeah, I don't really know what you can do for that one. Now, one of the reasons why I think these problems are so much worse in StarRail than in most other gacha games is because StarRail is turn-based. So there's only so many ways, 1, for counterplay, and 2, to make new characters exciting, and one way is to make them stronger than what came before. But if you keep doing that, you have to make enemies stronger to kind of compensate for that, or else most enemies are just gonna get rolled basically every single time. So it feels like the ceiling for power has just been getting raised higher and higher, to the point where now, if you aren't just min-maxing, you basically have to have the new characters to beat it, which just kind of feels like shit, I'm gonna be honest. So, the main thing that I think Chloe just needs to do is lower, the power ceiling needed for the endgame, so that more characters can actually beat it. Whether that's, just some of the changes I said, or even just from buffing characters. There needs to be some sort of changes, because it's getting kind of ridiculous. So my hope for the future is Hoyo actually fixes the modes that they have right now before making a new one, since if they make a new one while these problems still exist, these problems will probably just transfer to any new endgame mode Hoyo makes, and it won't solve anything, you know? Now, like I said, a lot of these problems could be solved with buffs as well, but I'll be honest, I don't really know if I trust Hoyo to do buffs correctly, since I feel like they're just gonna make a 5-star as the buffs instead of actually buffing the characters, which, doesn't really solve the problem. But I've also seen some people say that the game needs a 3-side format, or like a 3-team format. But I'll be honest, I think that is an awful idea, since it'll just like exacerbate the feeling of needing to pull for every character even more, especially because of how archetype-centric the game is. And also, it doesn't fix the core problems with Endgame at all. If anything, it would just make it worse. And to be honest, I feel like the 2-side setup is just like a fine system already. They just need to adjust how much power is needed to actually beat it. But I don't know, what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.